Joining us on the line is Delegate Pat McDonough, Republican from the state of Maryland. Delegate McDonough, thank you so much for being with us. It's sort of you're sort of a lonely guy, aren't you, being a Republican delegate in the state of Maryland?
Yes, I'm sort of like General Custer at the Little Bighorn.
Well, I appreciate you coming on the show because we wanted to talk to you about this idea you had. Very interesting. You say, look, in Maryland, you don't have the right to self-defense. You don't have, the ability to stand your ground if confronted and you feel threatened. In fact, under current Maryland law, you have an obligation, a duty to retreat. I guess I hadn't really thought of it in those terms, but you say that's a rather pro-criminal position to take as a state.
It is, and Maryland is a pro-criminal state. It's one of the most criminal-friendly states in the nation, and we have a big crime problem in Baltimore and throughout the state of Maryland. Duty to retreat is a minority extremist position. When I say minority, there's only 9 states that have duty to retreat. From the beginning and founding of the nation, the stand your ground standard had been what America used all across the country. But defense lawyers and ACLU types have chipped away in state legislatures in the past 20 years and created this duty to retreat, which, as I said, is the weakest form of pro-crime victim protection.
Well, and in fact, criminal defense attorney William Bowie commented on that. He doesn't like this idea.
I think the one thing that we all learned from the Zimmerman case is that the interpretation of the law can be different at different times for different people.
And he continued,
when you start to encourage private citizens to use self-help, I think you're actually encouraging more crime of its own, even though it's a different type of crime.
What do you say to that?
That's the silliest, most stupid thing I've ever heard in my life. Encouraging people, self-help. When someone comes into your home and your family is at risk and you own a firearm with your constitutional right, you better use self-help. You call 911, by the time those guys get there, you know what's going to happen. So what he's talking about is the kind of nonsense that they're promoting around the country. They keep relating it to Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. If you're a black person in this country, particularly in the state of Maryland, you better hope that Stand Your Ground passes, because the victim rate compared white to black in Baltimore City is about 500 to 1. So you want all the protection and civil rights you can have for your family and for yourself, and Stand Your Ground provides that. It protects you with immunity from lawsuits. It protects you from prosecution. If a zealous prosecutor thinks, oh, well, maybe he should not have used that firearm, you can get prosecuted. A lot of times the victims become victims again.
Maryland Delegate Pat McDonough is our guest. And Delegate McDonough, you just mentioned if someone comes into your home, you should have the right to stand your ground. And this is where I get confused, because there is a thing known as the Castle Doctrine as well. In most states, I assumed all states actually allowed for a self-defense defense if you're involved in a shooting, where if your home is being invaded by somebody, you can initiate and utilize the Castle Doctrine. Is that not the case? If your home is invaded right now in Maryland and someone comes in, do you have a duty to retreat within your own home?
Under certain circumstances. The Castle Doctrine prevails in every state in the nation. 22 states have 44 states have some form of Stand Your Ground that includes the Castle Doctrine. 22 states have a form of Stand Your Ground outside of the Castle Doctrine. The problem is that the Castle Doctrine is not as strong a form of protection under duty to retreat as it is under Stand Your Ground. I mean, there are times, I'll give an example. I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but down in Little Italy in Baltimore a few weeks ago, they had a video of 6 thugs chasing a young worker and beating him and breaking his jaw and stealing his iPhone. Now, let's put guns and knives out of the picture. If that young guy had known martial arts and he stopped and he stood or turned around and he decked 2 of those thugs, the other 4 would have run home to their mamas. And he could have been subjected in Maryland to prosecution or even a lawsuit or both.
Wow. But the and your proposal for a Stand Your Ground law in Maryland would allow that man to defend himself.
It would take immunity for him and put it right in the front, and he would be protected. This is about pro-criminal legislators versus crime victim legislators. And Maryland and the entire nation, with Eric Holder's decision, is in the middle of a huge and important debate as to whether or not the representatives of the people in this country and in the state of Maryland are going to be pro-crime victim, pro-public safety legislators, or they're going to be pro-criminal legislators. And Maryland is infested with defense lawyers on the Judiciary Committee and in the General Assembly passing every single year lenient sentencing and more early release.
Well, let me ask you, though. You talk about you wanting to do this. You want to put legislators on record. You'd like to really change the law, but let's be realistic. You're in Maryland, where they just passed some of the most onerous gun laws in the entire country, where it is very difficult to own a gun. It's expensive to own a gun. And if you do legally own a gun, now we're being told that you can't use it to defend yourself, even in a serious situation where your life is threatened. So what are the chances that you can push this through and get real consideration of your measure?
Well, in Maryland and probably any place else, if you're a state legislator and the people elect you, you could have a choice in your career of doing one of two things. One, you can say, I can't do anything, I quit, I'm going home. Or you can say, I have a responsibility to the people to stand my ground and represent them. So I believe in, that's my philosophy, and I will introduce the bill. The Judiciary Committee will kill it, but it will present an opportunity for many people to come down and testify. And then I will, and I've got a reputation for doing this, get the bill onto the floor of the House through the amendment process, and I will get all 141 legislators on record how they feel about it and how they vote in an election year.
Well, I'm sure you'll be happy to know, Delegate McDonough, that your colleague, Delegate Kathleen Dumais, I believe her is pronounced, she's the vice chairwoman of the House Judiciary Committee. She said, obviously, we would give this bill a fair hearing as we do every bill. So there you go. You'll have a fair hearing.
We will. In Maryland, the Judiciary Committee does present hearings, and they will allow people to come down. Sometimes they'll do it like they did with the gun bill. They'll do it 4 o'clock in the morning, or they'll have 3,000 people sitting around twiddling their thumbs unless they're, in favor of taking your gun. But they will have a hearing. But I have a reputation for getting on the floor of the House and getting amendments onto the floor. I just want to get them on the record in an election year, and I want to start a real debate, not this nonsense of Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. I want people to define this issue correctly. You're either pro-criminal or you are pro-crime victim, and this issue is to me.
All right, Delegate Matt McDonough, thanks so much for joining us.
Please keep us abreast of how this is going as you move forward.
Okay, thank you.